Councilmember Moore, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I too want to say thank you very much for taking on this huge task.
I will give everyone my Cash App and Venmo, so I'll wait for that. Thank you.
I just have my eternal gratitude and respect for taking this on, and also to everyone in the mayor's office who's worked very hard on this. And I know you had to work on it over the holiday or while we were on break, so very much appreciate all the efforts. I have a couple of general questions, and then I have some general comments to make. In terms of the deadlines, so I'm assuming that you are still accepting public comment on the zoning portion of this legislation, is that correct?
The public comment for the zoning legislation was December 20th, so that public comment period has closed. But that's not to say that as public comment goes on during the council process, that can't also be considered.
So you're not officially taking any more comments on the zoning maps that just came out in the fall?
Correct.
Okay. And then the other question about, since we've got the public hearing scheduled for February 5th, and yet there's no confirmation that we will have had the EIS by then, how is that going to work? Because it seems a waste of time to have a public hearing when we don't have the EIS.
The schedule does include multiple public hearings on the comprehensive plan. So the intent of this first public hearing is for people to focus on the comprehensive plan and the document itself. There will be another public hearing currently scheduled for late April that will cover council member amendments, zoning text amendments that are related to the changes within the comprehensive plan, and then that can also be informed by the EIS contents more deeply.
I think we need to have a separate hearing. I think Chair's gone, but my request would be we have a separate hearing once the EIS comes out, because the EIS is it's critical to the legislation and what we do with it and how we view it, and also with the broader context of this as a comprehensive plan. And part of the EIS also addresses, as I understand it, the social impact and consequences, which gets to the issue about affordability. So I guess I'm just going to make my general comments now, which is that I'm going to be looking at this to the eye of, does this in fact produce affordable housing? And what I've seen so far is that it does not. And simply equating density with affordability is a lie. It's a myth. There's a little bit of trickle down that will happen, but not enough to meet our affordability requirements. And I view this as an opportunity to really open the doors to home ownership opportunities. We need to be looking at not just the condo law change in Olympia, but we need to be looking at other ownership models such as co-ops and increasing the number of land trust opportunities. And I don't think this model allows us to do that. It specifically states that where we need our most housing is in the 0 to 60% AMI, and yet we are not getting that. We're not getting zoned for affordability in that range, and we need to keep an eagle eye on that, because as others have said, townhouses do not equal affordability, nor do they equal the ability to age in place, which is also important. So I will be keeping a close eye on this plan and coming at it from that perspective. I think the market always takes care of itself. The market will continue to take care of itself. Our role, my role, is to make sure that we are meeting the affordability requirements. So this is a one Seattle. This is a city where our baristas and our pizza drivers and our teachers can afford to live. And so that leads me to the second piece, which is we need more housing type diversity. We don't want this to just be a giveaway to developers for townhouses, partly because we're not structuring it in a way that incentivizes the ability to build stack flats, community courtyards, other sorts of housing diversity. It's that housing diversity, I think, that people are going to welcome and be less afraid of. And it's also the affordability piece. I know that people often equate the people who come here as NIMBYs. And when I have talked to my constituents, particularly in Maple Leaf, which is slated for a neighborhood center, despite my 2 formal requests to the mayor's office to remove it, people have always said to me, we need affordability, but what's being built is not affordable. And I'm not prepared to sacrifice this particular neighborhood and the reason that I live here and support this neighborhood so that we can just throw a bunch of townhouses up that start at $700,000. So it's not about being opposed to affordability. It's about making sure that what's actually being built is affordable and that there's a range of affordability, and that requires that we have a range of diversity options. The other thing that's critically important that I'll be looking at this plan is trees. Again, people diminish trees as a NIMBY issue. They are not a NIMBY issue. They are an ecological necessity. And I think, unfortunately, the building industry has been able to capture the dialogue on affordability and trees. And they've been very successful in pitting trees against affordability, and they're not either or. They can very much coexist. And that's our goal, is to coexist in this city as a one Seattle. And it's important that we continue to break down this lie and this myth, because this is also, in my opinion, an economic justice issue. Too many of our young people cannot afford to live in this city, and this is what's driving a lot of this. And yet they are told, well, if you just let us have a free rein and build, you'll be able to afford. You'll be able to have housing. It's not true. It is an economic justice issue. And so allowing free range zoning is not going to get you into the home that you want. It's not going to create the home ownership opportunity that you need to grow your wealth, to create a stable society where people are engaged socially and politically. What we're talking about is building high-end townhouses and lots of rentals. Rentals are not stable. We already have tremendous pressures on our rental market. It's not working well. And so we have these competing pressures about, we want to build more rental housing, and yet the rental housing isn't working, and it's bringing in more private equity. And that's the last thing we need. So we also need to challenge this statement that density is going to produce what people are seeking. When I talk to young people, they want a place of their own. They want a little garden. They want the amenities that us current homeowners have. And we're creating a false promise with what we're putting out here and what the urbanist people are telling us and what the building association is telling us, and even some of the affordable housing providers who desperately need more affordable housing and have had to, because of the structure of the Mandatory Housing Affordability Act, have had to tie their allegiance to them. So let us use this as an opportunity to really speak some truths, to really dig down into what is truly going to make the city a one Seattle. Let's not shy away from discussing true infrastructure capacity issues. Pinehurst is scheduled to be, in District 5, to have a tremendous amount of upzones. We currently don't have sufficient cable capacity in Pinehurst. We have rolling blackouts, and now we're talking about upzoning it. We're talking about District 5 that has the least number of sidewalks across the city. And thanks to Councilmember Saka in his leadership, the transportation levy, we now have a commitment to a huge number of sidewalks, but that's going to take decades to get those sidewalks. Where are people going to go when we now have all of these townhouses and multiplexes? How are people actually going to navigate the landscape? The other issue is transit. People seem to believe that if you build all this multifamily housing, transit will come. Let me tell you, it will not come. That's not how it works. We don't control Metro. We have one voice on the Sound Transit Board. They want to put a neighborhood center in Maple Leaf because we have one little bus that runs down Roosevelt to University District. That's not rapid transit. That's not mass transit. Why aren't we looking at upzoning 5th to connect with Northgate, where they're doing incredible work with bringing in density? Right, there's so many missed opportunities in this plan. We should be looking at utilizing more arterials. And to the argument that arterials are racist, I would say that to the people who are currently living there in their single-family homes. So we also do need to do a better job of making sure that we do expand into neighborhoods, but we do so in a way that is true to the nature, character of those neighborhoods as required by HB 1110, and that we're not shoving all of this down people's throats. That is not how you get buy-in. That's not how you get people to feel good about their government. And the last thing I'm going to say is that the public process has been abysmal. I have so many people in my district.
If we could use, no, you're
snap.
good. Yeah. If we could use jazz hands, appreciate it. And those are just shake your hands and not, thank you. Go
Thanks,
ahead,
Chair.
Councilmember.
Yeah, it's just been abysmal. I've had so many people say to me, like, I had no idea till yesterday what was happening. I had no idea. I mean, it's been amazing that we have this petition with over 700 signatures against opposing the designation of a neighborhood center in Maple Leaf that was accomplished. They had 400 in 3 days. Then they got over 700 over the holidays. To me, that speaks volumes about the lack of connection by the city to the neighborhood, people who live there, to the people who are going to have to absorb the growth, to the people who are going to be either welcoming or hostile to the new people that we do have to make room for. There has not been sufficient public outreach. There's not been sufficient discussion about this. Most people don't even know about HB 1110. And that piece of legislation is going to have a profound impact on the city, and we're trying to navigate it. But let's start with even educating people about what's coming, what they have no control over, first of all, and then let's make sure we talk to people how it's going to actually play out in their neighborhoods. And the last thing I will say, thank you, Chair, for your indulgence, is that a lot of this, obviously, HB 1110 was state-driven. There's legislation right now that will probably be introduced in Olympia that is called the builder's remedy, which means that if Seattle doesn't sort of toe the line based on the Master Builders Association and other proponents of growth, that it will be shoved down our throat. So I would encourage you to reach out to all of your state representatives in the 36, the 30s, I mean, all of them in Seattle. And you need to pay attention to what's happening in Olympia, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to respond to what Olympia has mandated, and we're doing the best that we can. But things are also percolating, and it's important that you be on the ground there and that your voices be heard as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. If there's any response